The views and opinions expressed on our podcast by us or by any guest are those of our own and of our guests. They do not reflect the views, opinions, or approval of any Grand Lodge of Freemasonry or any lodge of any jurisdiction. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Masonic Ring Podcast. I am your host, Brother Nathan Davis, and on today's episode, we're going to be continuing our series on famous Freemasons. The last one we did was on Worshipful Brother George Washington, and today, this one here is actually kind of special for me because this famous Freemason literally grew up about 10 minutes down the road from where I'm sitting at right now. But before we get into that, I'm going to throw out a shameless plug to visit our website at theMasonicRing.com. And I am also going to say, if you would like to visit us on Facebook at the Masonic Ring. The website is still a work in progress, but we are continually updating everything and all of that. So this has been a wonderful journey for me so far, and I want to bring the best kind of entertainment that I can, and also the best information possible. So for everyone out there who is on a podcast platform, if you would like to watch our podcast live, you can. You can do that on Facebook. I also am going to be putting up the recordings of our live stream on YouTube. You can search that up at the Masonic Ring. For everyone on Facebook, like I always say, I'm hoping that you can hear me okay. I'm just a one-man band here, and I am trying my best to make sure that everything is done correctly. So if you can hear me, give me a shout out. Let me know you can hear me, and we will get on with the episode. This famous Freemason, he had a home just right down the road from where I'm sitting at right now in Southern Ohio. He was very famous because he was known as America's cowboy. And anybody that knows anything about that will know that I'm talking about Brother Roy Rogers. Brother Roy Rogers was America's cowboy, and he had a home, and we'll get into it here in just a little bit later, but he had a home right here in Southern Ohio. He was born in Cincinnati and traveled upriver, I should say, to a little town called Portsmouth, where he grew up as a child. And it's pretty neat, because it's very odd for anybody out of this area to grow up to be famous, much less a famous Freemason. And he's got an esplanade there in Portsmouth, Ohio, named after him. It's the Roy Rogers Esplanade. We have a Roy Rogers Festival. A lot of things in this area are named after him, and it's really pretty neat that that he is from this area. For those of you on Facebook, I'm going to show you what his boyhood home looked like. It wasn't much of anything. It was right there in a little area called McDermott. And more of maybe more Lucasville than McDermott, but you can Google it and type in Roy Rogers' boyhood home. But it was it was an old farmhouse on a farm. That's what they did. And I always thought that was pretty neat. Like I said, you can go visit it and drive by it. I don't know who lives there or who owns it now, but I'm sure they love people coming and staring at their house. But that's something that, you'd probably have to get used to if you lived in a famous or a home that used to be occupied by someone famous. But yeah, so that's pretty neat. Excuse me. I thought that was pretty neat that he lived right down the road from where I'm at right now. But, I've been by that house, when I first got into the workforce. I was working for a security company where we installed security systems and cameras and stuff like that, mainly home security. And we actually put in a security system in the home right next door to Roy Rogers' boyhood home. And I thought that this was before everyone had a smartphone in their pocket, so I just kind of had to soak it in. But like I said, you can drive down there right now and take a look at it. The Ohio Historical Society has a sign up, and there's a picture with Brother Rogers and Trigger on a monument right there. So it's really pretty neat. But we'll go ahead and get into his life. We're going to start with his early life, obviously. He was born, I thought this was pretty neat because I actually learned this researching for the podcast, that he was born Leonard Slye, Slye. And he was the son of Maddie and Andrew Slye, and he was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. They lived where Riverfront Stadium would actually sit. And everyone knows Riverfront is no longer there, but Riverfront Stadium would actually sit on where they lived at in Cincinnati. I thought that was pretty interesting as well. So Andy, which was Leonard's dad at the time, he was not yet known as Roy. Andy decided that he wanted to take advantage of the industrial boom, and he wanted to take Mike. Hey, Mike. He says, just an FYI, I work right up the street from another famous Ohio Freemasons house. That's neat. There's several Freemasons from Ohio, so that's pretty neat. As far as famous Freemasons, I should say. So Andy moved his family. They actually built a houseboat out of salvaged lumber, and This was around 1912. They built a houseboat, and they wanted to take advantage of the industrial boom that was going on along the Ohio River. And at that time, Portsmouth, Ohio, was very big in industry. We had well, they still make. There was the biggest shoelace company. Um, I don't know if they are still considered shoelace. It was called Mitchell Lace. Now it's called Soul Choice, but they make shoelaces. And at one time, it was the biggest shoelacing factory in the nation. And then, of course, you had coal, you had iron ore, pig iron up and down the river. There was the industry in Portsmouth was just booming at the time. Um, so they took this houseboat and they went upriver, and they settled in Portsmouth, Ohio. And what's funny about this is, well, it's not really funny. It's actually kind of tragic, but um, the area around the southern Ohio area, right along the Ohio River, for is known for flooding. This area has flooded for probably as long as it's been in existence, and we actually have I want to say a 20 foot or higher flood wall going around the entire city, because well, that all took place around after the 1937 flood, which just devastated this area. They had a flood wall levee there, but it actually broke over that flood wall that was there, and they had to build a bigger one and a stronger one. But because of the flooding, the Great Flood of 1913 allowed them to move the houseboat from their property in Portsmouth and move it upriver, up the Scioto River, which actually literally splits the state in half, just about, and settle on their farmland in Lucasville. And I thought that was pretty interesting because they actually was able to take their houseboat up. And if you knew anything about the geography around here, that's a pretty big feat. But where the boyhood home is not far from the Scioto River. So it makes sense how it would have happened. So they settled in Lucasville, which is probably about, I'd say 20 miles, 15, 20 miles away from Portsmouth. In Lucasville, they built a 6-room house, and then Andy, that he realized that the farm alone would not sustain his family. So he took a job at the Portsmouth Shoe Factory. So the Portsmouth Shoe Factory was another part of the industry that he decided to take. He worked at the shoe factory, and he also helped on the farm. And let's see here. So they lived on the farm with no radio. That was the family. That was at that time entertainment for the family, for not just their family, but families all over the world. It was radio, but they had no radio. So what they did was they had to entertain each other, and they would do it with competitions. One of the competitions that they did was the family learned to yodel. Yodeling was a huge deal back in that time. That was just one of those more popular kind of singing activities, was yodeling. So that would be where Roy, who was Leonard at the time, where Roy would eventually get his start in music, was actually with the family. He attended McDermott High School, I don't know if it was actually called McDermott. I don't know of a McDermott High School, so it may have been years ago. Um, After he completed his second year in high school, uh, he and his family returned to Cincinnati, and his father worked in another shoe factory. So at this time, the family um, was needing help financially. So Lynn, as they called him, quit school, and he tried to attend night school, but he kept falling asleep in class. Um, so he quit school to help his family out financially, and he joined his father working in the shoe factory. And by 1929, and they were struggling financially, but in 1929 is when the collapse, the Great Collapse hit of the Great Depression. So things got even worse. They decided to quit their job at the shoe factory, and they packed up and moved from Cincinnati, Ohio, all the way to California. And they stayed there for about 4 months and decided to return back to Ohio. After returning back from Ohio, Lynn had the opportunity to once again go back to California. And so he decided to go ahead and do that, and the rest of the family followed. When he got back to California, he started working at a construction company, but in 1931, the construction company went bankrupt. So then he was without a job once again. So in 1931, Lynn auditioned on a radio show, and shortly after, he joined the short-lived singing group called the Rocky Mountaineers. The Rocky Mountaineers. They toured New Mexico, Arizona, and on a shoestring in the heat of the summer. Even finding food for them was a real challenge. So they were on a shoestring budget. They were traveling from state to state and was barely making ends meet. While performing in Roswell, New Mexico, a caller to the radio station promised Rogers, who is still Lynn at that time, I believe, that she would bake him a pie if he sang the Swiss Yodel. And some of these I wanted to look up and play for you guys, but due to copyright laws, it would have shut me down. And but I really, if you like any kind of old timey music, I would suggest you go do that. So she said, "I'll bake you a pie if you sing the Swiss Yodel." And then it just so happens that romance blossomed and the couple married in Roswell in 1936. But and her name was Grace Arlene Wilkins. And unfortunately, Grace passed away during childbirth. Just 10 years after they wed. So after Lynn Sly's second arrival in California, he was pressured by family and friends to audition for different radio groups, different quartets, different things like that. And one of the ones that he auditioned for was called the Midnight Frolic radio program, which was broadcast in Inglewood, California. A few nights later, wearing a Western shirt that his sister had made for him, he overcame his shyness and appeared on the program playing the guitar, singing, and yodeling. And a few days later, he was asked to join the local country music group, the Rocky Mountaineers. He accepted the group's offer and became a member in August 1931. In spring of 1932, Sly, Spencer, and another singer, Slumber Nichols, left the Rocky Mountaineers to form a trio, which soon failed. So throughout that year, Sly and Spencer moved through a series of short-lived groups, including the International Cowboys and the Obar O Cowboys. Um, but then Spencer left the Obar O Cowboys to take a break from music, and Sly joined Jack Levere and his Texas Outlaws, who were a popular act on a local Los Angeles radio station. In 1933, Sly, Nolan, and Spencer formed the Pioneers Trio, with Sly on guitar, Nolan on string bass, and Spencer as lead vocalist. Um, During this time, Sly continued to work with his radio singing group, and Spencer and Nolan began writing songs for the trio. Moving ahead to 1934, the fiddle player Hugh Farr joined the group, adding a bass voice to their vocal arrangement. And later that year, the Pioneer Trio became the Sons of the Pioneers when a radio station announcer changed their name because he felt they were way too young to be pioneers. The name was received well and fit the group, which was no longer a trio. So at this time, he's still Leonard Sly, and he's moving right along. You know what I think? You read anything about, and this isn't just for famous Freemasons. This is for just about any famous singer, especially the old timey ones. Like you think about Merle Haggard and Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson. A lot of them grew up in extreme poverty, and they had a dream and they followed it. They didn't give excuses and say, well, I can't do it because I'm too poor, or I can't do it because of this or that. They just did it, which I think is pretty awesome. So we're going to jump up here to 1934. 1934, the popularity and fame of the Sons of the Pioneers extended beyond the Los Angeles area and quickly spread across the country through short syndicated radio segments that were later rebroadcast across the United States. The Sons of the Pioneers signed a recording contract and recorded their first commercial on August 8th, 1934. One of the first songs recorded during that first session was Tumbling Tumbleweeds, written by Bob Nolan. And over the next 2 years, the Sons of the Pioneers recorded 32 songs, including the classic Cool Water. That Cool Water song, I like that one. You need to look that one up because that one's pretty neat. Let me get me a drink here. From his, now we're going to jump up to his personal life a little bit. In 1932, this is after he had changed his name to Roy Rogers, I think. I have that in here somewhere. Anyway, in 1932, he bought a Palomelo Colt in California that was named Golden Cloud. When Rogers bought him, he renamed him Trigger. And in 1932, Rogers met an admiral named Lucille Ascolis. And they were married in 1933 by a justice of the peace in Los Angeles. The marriage failed, however, and the couple divorced in 1936. And then Rogers went on tour with the Obar O Cowboys, and in June 1933, met Grace Arlene Wilkins at Roswell, the lady that was going to make a pie. After his wife Grace passed away, Rogers met Dale Evans in 1944 when they were cast in a film together. They fell in love, and soon after Grace's death, Rogers proposed to her during a rodeo at the Chicago Stadium. They married on New Year's Eve in 1947 at the Flying L Ranch in Davis, Oklahoma, where they had filmed Home in Oklahoma a few months earlier. They have 5 children, one of which passed away due to complications with mumps and was also Down syndrome. And they had 4 adopted children. Dale Evans wrote about the loss of their daughter in her book, Angel Unaware. Rogers and Evans remained married until his death. In 1955, Rogers and Evans purchased a 168-acre ranch near Chatsworth, California, complete with a hilltop ranch house, expanding it to 300 acres. After their adopted daughter, Debbie, was killed in a church bus accident, they moved to the 67-acre Double R Bar Ranch in Apple Valley, California, in a nearby town. So they had 2 children pass away, which is heartbreaking. I thought it was interesting too that Roy Rogers, this is pretty neat. From his first appearance in 1935, Sly worked steadily in the Western films, including a large supporting role as a singing cowboy, while still billed as Leonard Sly. In 1938, let's see. In 1938, many singers sought the job of a singing cowboy, including Willie Phelps of the Phelps Brothers, who appeared in early Western movies. Sly ended up winning the contest and was given the stage name Roy Rogers by Republic Pictures, suggesting the Western-sounding name Roy and combining it with the surname of the popular Western comic entertainer Will Rogers. He was assigned the leading role in Under the Western Stars. So that pretty much sums that up. I want to move over to more of his Freemason career. So Roy Rogers, born Leonard Sly in Cincinnati, Ohio, then moved to a small southern Ohio town called Portsmouth, and then settled in Lucasville. Grew up to be America's cowboy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flash up a picture of Roy Rogers in his very recognizable hat and Western shirt there. Sorry about that. I'm trying not to make noise. Now we're going to jump into Roy as a Freemason. So Roy Rogers was initiated as a entered apprentice in the Hollywood Lodge number 355 in Los Angeles, California on April 15th, 1946. And he was raised as a Master Mason on June 27th of that same year. That's pretty neat. Hollywood Lodge. I thought that was neat. Hollywood Lodge number 355. Says Brother Rogers' love of children and his personal experience with their sometimes unfortunate circumstances endeared him to the ancient Arabic order, order of the nobles of the Mystic Shrine, or the Shriners. He joined the Shriners in 1950, and he joined the Alamacu Shrine Temple alongside the famous clown Red Skeleton and actor William Powell Jr. He was also a member of the Scottish Rite, and he was knighted a Knight Commander Court of Honor in 1975 and coordinated a 33rd degree Inspector General honorary in 1979. He later transferred his membership to Long Beach Scottish Rite in 1988, and he was also a companion of the Royal Ark, a Royal and Select Master, and a Knights Templar in 1983. So that's he was pretty much a member of just about everything. Just an FYI, Will Rogers was also a Freemason. Yes, I saw that when I was researching. There's a lot of famous Freemasons out there that you wouldn't have necessarily imagined to be Freemasons. Through the assistance by the George Washington Masonic Memorial, Roy Rogers Jr., a.k.a. Dusty, was put into contact with the Henry Wilson Coyle Library and Museum of Freemasonry. The Roy Rogers Museum in Missouri had closed, and these precious artifacts illustrating the Masonic career needed a home. Thus, in early 2010, they were acquired by the Henry Wilson Coyle Library and Museum of Freemasonry. And not only are his personal Masonic effects included in the collection, but also items of earlier Masonic histories belonging to others that were gifted to him. And you can look that up on MasonicHeritage.org, MasonicHeritage.org. They have, let me look here. I'll have to go in. They have a huge museum, and a lot of it's dedicated to the California Masons, California famous Freemasons and stuff like that. But I invite you all to take a look at that. It's the Henry W. Coyle Library and Museum of Freemasonry. They have a large collection of rare items pertaining to Freemasonry around the world: aprons, medallions, collars, sashes, earthenware, silverware, photographs, paintings, and patents, to just name a few. So MasonicHeritage.org. I invite you all to take a look at that. So, after having a distinguished life in music and having a distinguished life as a Freemason, Roy Rogers passed away on July 6th, 1998 in Apple Valley, California, as a result of congestive heart failure. Rogers was buried at the Sunset Hills Memorial Park in Apple Valley, as was his wife, Dale Evans, 3 years later. Roy Rogers was really big in the Shriners, because what is the biggest thing that the Shriners are known for is the Shriners Hospital, is to take care of children. And what's one of their statements is that no man stands as tall as when he stoops to help a child. And that was one of his passions, was to help children. And so that's one of the reasons he joined the Shriners. But like I said, he was not only a member of the Blue Lodge, which those of you who may not know, Blue Lodge is just your local lodge. It's the lodge that you were raised in. He was a member of the Shriners, the Scottish Rite, the York Rite, the Knights Templar. So he had a really distinguished career in Freemasonry. Not only in Freemasonry, some of his awards during his entertainment career. He was honored with 3 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He was honored for motion pictures at 1952 Vine Street. I actually saw that when I visited Los Angeles. I remember being on Vine Street right there, and I remember seeing 2. I may have seen 3, but I thought it was odd that he had 2 at the time, but then I found out he actually had 3. At 1752 Vine Street, he had another one for his work in television at 1620 Vine Street, and another one for his work in radio at 1733 Vine Street. In 1983, he was awarded the Golden Boot Award, and in 1996, he received the Golden Boot Founders Award. In 1967, Rogers, with Choctaw blood on his mother's side, was named Outstanding Indian Citizen of the Year by a group of Western tribes. In 1976, Rogers and Evans were inducted into the Western Performers Hall of Fame and the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. In 1995, he was inducted again as a founding member of the Sons of the Pioneers. He received recognition from the state of Arkansas, appointed by the governor of that state, with an Arkansas Traveler Certificate, and he was elected twice to the Country Music Hall of Fame, first as a member of the Sons of the Pioneers, and again as a soloist in 1988. And as of July 2013, he was the only person elected to the Country Music Hall of Fame twice. In 2001, a Golden Palm Star on the Palm Springs, California Walk of Stars was dedicated to him and his wife, Dale Evans. He had a cultural influence that is reflected in numerous songs, including If I Had a Boat by Lyle Lovett, Roy Rogers by Elton John on his 1973 album Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and Should Have Been a Cowboy by Toby Keith. Rogers himself makes an appearance in the music video for the song Heroes and Friends by Randy Travis. Randy Travis is another one of my, another singer that I enjoy listening to. Rogers is referred to in numerous films, including Die Hard, in which Bruce Willis's character John McClane used the pseudonym Roy and remarks, "I was always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, actually." In the television series American Dad, the character Roger uses Roy Rogers as a synonym for, in the episode Rogers McFreely, and in the movie City Slickers, the Jack Palance character Curly sings the song Tumbling Tumbleweeds, while Billy Crystal, who plays Mitch, is playing the harmonica. So he had a very influential life, and not only in his films, songs, and radio performances, but also as a Freemason. And he used his celebrity status, for the good too, when he was trying to help children while he was alongside his brother Shriners and his brother Masons. So that's pretty much all I have for Roy Rogers. I thought it was really neat, being that he grew up right here where I grew up is pretty neat. I just think that's very interesting. I have another picture of him with Trigger. I just think that's awesome. I love history, and I think that's really historical locally that, America's cowboy lived right here down the road from us. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have on Roy Rogers. But I wanted to take some questions, if there was any questions out there in Facebook land. and also let people know that we are going to be having or trying to have a guest on. He's actually on here right now. Um, Mike, the intern, they call him. He is extraordinarily smart when it comes to all things Freemasonry. And he is going to be speaking on pendant bodies and something that I don't know a whole lot about. So I thought, well, let's bring in an expert. So, was Trigger a Mason by area? You know what? He may have been. I don't know. Depends on the lodge, I guess. Yeah. But anyway, I'm going to be trying to get guests on. Mike's going to come on and he's going to help us out with pendant bodies, which I'm really looking forward to. I wanted to get past the holidays and stuff like that, but we're going to make that happen, or try our best to make that happen for everybody. He's actually a podcaster too, and I'll let him speak on that if he wishes when he is on the program. Some other things we've got coming up, we're going to try our best to start having guest hosts on from other brothers from my lodge, to try to make it a little bit more interesting, not just so you guys don't just hear my monotone voice, all the time. We can actually have interaction. Eric says, I can vouch for that. Mike is smart. Some say too smart. So you all have to excuse me. Over Christmas, I was sick. Now, I can't ever remember being that sick in my life. Christmas Eve, I laid down and I didn't get up again until that Friday. I was sick. Like I've never, man, it was rough. Mike says, too smart for my own good. So I wanted to get past the holidays. I wanted to get over this sickness, and I knew it's been a while since I posted anything. So I wanted to go ahead and do it tonight. You may still be able to hear the sickness in my voice. My voice is normally not this deep. I usually have this high whiny nasally thing going on, and now I have a kind of low nasally thing going on. So, but anyway, if there's any questions out there, I'd be happy to take them. If not, we can end this podcast. It's been on about 43 minutes. That's a pretty decent podcast, but I also want to invite people out there that you can go to anchor.fm. That's who I host my podcast through. Mike says, do we know if Dusty Rogers became a Freemason? You know what, Mike? I do not know that. I might be able to find that out for you really quick. Dusty, of course, was Roy Rogers' son. But let's see if we can find that. While we're looking, you can actually go to anchor.fm. You can also download the Anchor app. And if you want to be on the podcast, you can send up to a minute-long voice message to my platform on Anchor. And what I was wanting to do is to see if we could get some people to log on to that app or go to their computer, record a message. And I would love it to be, in the form of a conspiracy theorist. Come up with anything crazy, anything like that, so long as the content is family friendly, no F-bombs, nothing like that, but come up with your version of a conspiracy theorist and we can have some fun. And what I'll do is actually play them on the podcast. I will also post a link on Facebook for anybody that wants to go on Facebook. I'll do that after this podcast is over. I want to start getting some interaction from listeners out there. And so I thought it would be really neat or really funny to do that, because that's something that I can see myself doing. Actually, I have done that with another with another podcast, but I don't think they've played it. But I called in acting like Alex Jones. But anyway, it's anchor.fm. Just search up the Masonic Ring podcast. Um, from what I'm seeing here, Mike, and I cannot, I cannot be 100% sure, but what I'm seeing here is that Dusty was not a member of Freemasonry, but that is just doing a quick search on here, and I don't see anything where he was. No, I don't see anything where he was a Freemason. There's somebody called Rusty Rogers that's a Freemason, but that's not the same person. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. I was talking about, going to anchor.fm, and give me your best conspiracy theorist recording. And if it's funny enough, it'll end up on the podcast. So, and also please remember to keep it as family friendly as possible. So, I think that is going to end it for now. And I haven't decided what we're going to do the next podcast on, but I have a busy week this week. I've got a stated meeting tomorrow, which is actually our pre-inspection. And then we've got a fellowcraft degree on Thursday. And then right after that, we've got practice for our inspection coming up on the 18th. So I am senior deacon this year, elected senior deacon. So you all know I have a lot of introductions. I have a lot of walking, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be fun. But anyway, I will be back. I'm going to try my best to start making these podcasts scheduled for the live streams on a certain day of the week at a certain time. But until I can get through the harshest part of the winter, I work in propane, so I'm horribly busy. But I'm going to try and start doing that for everyone so that they can, and I'm going to try to do it in the evening so that, most people are off work and can take advantage of watching that. So I want to thank everyone for listening. Remember to visit theMasonicRing.com. Also jump over to Facebook, like us on Facebook at The Masonic Ring. And you can also now watch these live streams on YouTube. Just search up The Masonic Ring. Until next time, I am Brother Nathan Davis, and always remember to keep it on the level.